Nice park you got here. Be a shame if Doug Ford developed it. And with Bill 5, Dougie could raise this place just like he did Ontario Place and tried to do with the greenbelt, with no environmental assessments or meaningful public consultation. It also dismantles all environmental protection laws, giving developers the right to destroy endangered species habitats with impunity. Or legal consequences to developers who break the law. Stripper news. Right now, the PCs are quietly pushing through Bill 5, the Protecting Ontario and Unleashing Our Economy Act. Among other horrors, Bill 5 gives anyone the government chooses the right to ignore any and every municipal and provincial law. And most importantly, Bill 5 bypasses the need to consult with Indigenous communities to extract resources without their consent. Landback, stripper news. Wow, it's fellow artist and filmmaker Jamie Whitecrow. Have you heard of Bill 5?
I looked into it and realized that it is something that is affecting where I grew up, which is in the north, northern Ontario, and they call that area the Ring of Fire.
And Doug Ford has explicitly stated that one of his main intentions with Bill 5 is to expedite the process of mining near the Ring of Fire. And what that means in practice is avoiding consultations with the Indigenous communities around the Ring of Fire.
I'm not surprised. This man is a bully, and I feel like he may be still a believer in terra nullius, the concept of nobody's land. You know, maybe he's like one of those people who they still believe that the land is empty, that there's no animals or species, that it's up for the taking, and that is astounding and shocking, and I feel really sad about why somebody would continue to believe that in order to further their own agenda or to make money or to protect the economy, all of these things at the expense of the risk of losing so many lives, so many species.
So Bill 5 impedes the ability for reconciliation.
I feel like reconciliation, acts of reconciliation must start from like a healthy relationship between the government and Indigenous peoples, and by removing the opportunity to engage an Indigenous community about their lands, about their territory, I am not surprised. I am not surprised.
Yeah.
Indigenous rights are human rights. The idea of consent, I think, is also important, especially when you're in a relationship with, let's say, the government. You have the right to say no, if it's going to impact your health, the health of the land, the health of your community. There is a history in like the Indigenous communities that, this bill is impacting, a history and a memory of all of the environmental degradation and the impacts of mining on these communities as well. People remember the dumpings have occurred, and when the dumpings have occurred, the devastation of the land around them, how it impacted their water, their food sources, all of this stuff. The memory is still there, how it impacted their health and cancers and all of these things, birth defects, just from mining in general. So not to say, hey, is it okay if we start digging this big hole? There's no respect and there's no opportunity for consent.
Doug Ford, who raised you?
Who raised you? I think in terms of what it feels like to not be consulted as an Indigenous person about your own homeland or territory, it's kind of like, imagine you're in your house and then this guy just shows up and he starts digging a hole in your front yard, and the next day he's back with like 50 men. And then 1,000 men, and then suddenly you have like man camps, like just kind of like situated outside your front door. And then they leave, they don't find what they're looking for, and then they leave, and there's just this giant hole and this giant mess. That's what it feels like to be like an Indigenous person living in one of those reserves up there. It's pretty tragic because it is a watershed, that area, and all that water trickles down, to here.
Yeah, and when we pollute fresh water, we can't unpollute it. And Indigenous people are always on the front lines of protecting land and water.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Native people became the defenders of the land. I mean, I get it, because I feel like you just have to look around you and understand that you are part of an ecosystem. It's not science, but people made it science. It's a very natural thing to be a part of everything around you.
And I think like the Doug Ford approach so far has always been very profit-driven.
Yes, that concept of just nature is there to be taken and to be used in whatever way that you want. To me, it's a very foreign way of thinking. It's also just being a bully. I feel like he has like this bully mentality. All of his friends are going to be profiting from this decision that he's making, you know, getting rid of the red tape and avoiding the hard conversations with Indigenous peoples about their homelands.
Not only is Bill 5 threatening to override the need to consult with Indigenous communities, it also threatens to dismantle the Endangered Species Act.
That is wild. Who is this man? Who raised this man? You can't just remove an entire species from the fabric of the ecosystem, because if one species goes, a whole other dozen species go. When it impacts everything, it impacts like our food, our water, like everything.
So I'm guessing your take is that protecting habitats and animals is important?
Yes. Protect the animals, they're so cute.
Bill 5 also makes it possible for Doug Ford and the government to pick and choose anyone, any project, any developer to override municipal and provincial laws.
Who raised this man?
Who raised you? Who raised you? You're f***ed. But yeah, this idea that like these developers could destroy any habitat in Ontario, literally could be High Park. And no punishment, no accountability.
I believe it. I believe that could happen. There's a lot of history here, and I feel like these grounds have always meant something to Indigenous peoples, and I know a lot of friends who've buried their placenta here.
It is absolutely heartbreaking what has happened at Ontario Place. The level of corruption, no environmental assessment, using public funds to raise this extraordinary natural habitat that used to be public. And now we're dealing with a situation where there are these like coyotes.
Gotta love coyotes.
We love coyotes roaming Liberty Village.
No way.
Because their habitats have been destroyed at Ontario Place. And yes, it's a problem for a lot of the dog owners in the community because the coyotes, they used to have a home, now they don't have a home and they're trying to survive. They don't want to be around people, they don't want to be around dogs. And it's a situation where people are afraid. The city is now shooting the coyotes. Instead of dealing with the root issue, which is natural habitat destruction.
I don't know. I'm a loss for words. But I mean, it falls in line with the colonial thinking.
Can we get your comment? So beautiful. Unleashing our economy. Who let the dogs out? Stripper News! It sure is a beautiful park.
It really is. It's such a gorgeous place. And it's spring.
And it's spring! Stripper News!